this is what's done with Coldwell Banker. I am here actually with Joel, who is a insurance agent with State Farm. Today we are going to talk about home insurance, coverage, flood insurance, what you need to know about your plan and how to choose the best plan for you and your family. So this is a very educational class. There's going to be some Q&A. Feel free to subscribe to my channel and ask questions, and I will be happy to pass along your question to Joel, and I will put his information in the link of the video at the end if you guys have any questions. So thank you for watching, and now it's to you, Joel.
Opportunity to visit with you. We'll try to make the meeting about you guys. Try to answer any questions you have that relate to homeowners insurance, what the meeting's going to cover. If you guys don't have a lot of questions, I'll just talk and hit some of the high points through here. I've got everybody a little book printed out. I'm going to ask you to follow me through there. The very first page in here is what newcomers need to know about homeowners insurance. And the only thing I'm really going to relate to on this page for your knowledge that you're the realtor selling the home is the line that says, how are homeowners insurance quotes calculated? And it says insurance agents run what's called a CLUE report, comprehensive loss underwriting exchange report, which tells us if there's been any prior insurance policy claims on the house and what was involved. The report also looks at the home buyer as an individual and any previous claims they might have had. They also run what's called an insurance score on the home, which is based on the buyer's personal credit history. So a lot of things go into us calculating a premium for somebody. It may even determine whether we can write the house at all. If that house has a bunch of prior losses, like it's had a whole bunch of consistent water losses, there may be a problem in that house. And if the homeowner has had some negligence claims where he created the loss, we may not want to insure the individual. So there's a lot of things that go into that, as well as where the house is located, the construction of the house, the square footage of the house, all that kind of stuff. So you need to know all that goes into the premium on a homeowner's policy and his eligibility for us to be able to write them. I don't know what you know about State Farm. We're the largest insurance company in the world. We're bigger than probably the next 15 carriers put together. And I hope that's because we do what we tell people we'll do. We stand behind our claims. We pay what we owe on those things. Hurricane season's going to start up here June 1st and run through November 30th. So that's something people need to be aware of.
And I'm adding the pages. It's the picture of the pages for anyone watching online. If you open up the chat, you should be able to see a shot of what he's going over with us.
Joel, you said June 1st to when? Hurricane season?
November 30th.
June 1st.
Through November 30th.
Good to know.
That's hurricane season. So that's be coming up shortly. Always a fun time for us in Southeast Texas. Next page I want you to look at is the one that says important questions to ask your homeowner's agent. It says shopping for insurance can be confusing and overwhelming. Choosing the wrong coverage can be a costly mistake. You don't want to find out about it after you filed a claim and the damage is not covered. Most people, including you, probably don't understand homeowner insurance policies. How many of you ever read a homeowner's policy?
I've tried to.
If you did read it, did you understand it? Because it's written in Philadelphia lawyer talk. So most people, even if they read it, they don't understand it. But there's a lot of questions you should ask your agent about. Is it an all-risk policy or named perils? Because the agents, if you notice down there at the bottom, I think I highlighted your book, agents don't have a specific duty to tell you that.
Yeah.
So if you don't ask the questions, you may not learn the answer to that.
Wow.
Did you know that?
I sure can. There you go.
So it's important for you to do a little homework and come up to speed a little bit about what a homeowner's policy covers. The next page I want you to turn to is one that says coverage summary. These are the 7 sections a homeowner's policy is broken up into, all right? The structure is what you think it is. That's the actual physical structure of the house. Personal property is your household contents. Coverage C is loss of use. That means if your house is damaged by a hurricane or a fire and it's not livable, will we put you up someplace to live? The next coverage is personal liability. Coverage 5 is medical payments for people who get injured on the property. And then you've got your deductibles and endorsements. The coverage I want to address here with you today is not one that you normally think about, but it's the liability coverage. A lot of people think they can minimize their premium by minimizing the liability. I think the liability coverage of the policy is actually the most important part of the policy for you. And here's why. If you have some of the worst claims I've had in my 41-year career have been homeowners liability claims. The worst one I can remember is a family that had a swimming pool and the family next door had a trampoline. The kids decided they thought they could bounce on this trampoline over the fence into the pool. The kid broke his neck. But under the law, that swimming pool is considered an attractive nuisance. Who's liable?
The homeowner.
You are.
Oh.
Wow, that's
That doesn't make
nonsense.
any
That's
sense.
crazy.
Crap. That's the way the law is. It's not the insurance law.
It's
That's,
considered a what?
a swimming pool is considered an attractive nuisance.
Attractive.
Nuisance. If a child digs a hole under your fence or climbs over your fence, even though it's locked, that's an attractive nuisance. So where's the liability come into play? That family out in Katy sued the next door neighbor, and it was a $3 million lawsuit. And it was no question who was negligent there. But the swimming pool is an attractive nuisance.
So, okay, quick question. The person that had the swimming pool, they lost, right?
Yes.
Yes, they did.
Okay, because, okay, I just want to be
That's
sure.
unbelievable though.
Not only did they lose their house
What?
and almost everything they owned,
That doesn't make any sense.
I'm just telling you, that's the way the law reads. People need it. So is liability coverage important?
Yes.
Because your liability coverage picks up court costs, attorney's fees, and settles the claim for you.
Wow.
So we're always going to recommend to people that not only do you need liability on your cars and your homes, but if you have assets of any significance, you really need an umbrella policy, which is excess limits liability, where we write liability from $1 to $20 million.
Now you said the liability covers what? You said court costs?
Attorney.
The
fee.
liability coverage picks up court costs and attorney's fees, in addition to settling the claim for you. Okay? So when you're selling somebody a house and they're going to the insurance guy to insure the house, they ought to think about liability coverage there too, because I think people can get hurt worse under liability issues than they can property damage claims.
Wow, I did not know that.
And that's really true in automobile insurance too. I think liability is the most important part of the automobile policy also. Because if you're in an accident and you kill somebody or disable somebody and you're negligent, what's that person's lifetime income earning ability worth? What's his hospitalization worth? What's his disability payments worth for the rest of his life? That's what you're going to be facing a lawsuit for. Fun game, isn't it?
I'm like, call my insurance after this.
Well,
He's talking about people who have a pool.
No, I know, but he was also saying about automobile insurance.
yeah, the
about
last
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
But right before you walked in, he was talking about a situation where somebody had a pool, the next door neighbor, they had a trampoline. Kids thought it was a brilliant idea to use a trampoline to try to get into the pool. And so at the end of the day, the owner of the pool, you know, they didn't have any fault in that, but they still got sued and they lost everything because swimming pool is considered.
An attractive nuisance. So is the trampoline.
That's scary.
So they don't have insurance, the owner. The owner with the pool, they don't have that insurance.
Well, they had homeowners insurance,
How?
but they only had $300,000 liability. That's not very much.
I know, but
It's an attractive nuisance. There are insurance companies in the marketplace today that if you have a trampoline, will not insure your house.
Really?
That's absolutely true.
Say that one more time, I missed that part.
There are homeowners insurance companies in the marketplace today that if you own a trampoline, they will not insure your house
Oh my gosh.
because the liability exposure is huge. You know how many kids get hurt and maimed on trampolines every year?
A lot.
A lot. Those are all turned into be liability lawsuits somewhere.
So what is a loophole for that?
What loophole?
Let's say I have a swimming pool.
The answer is don't have the trampoline.
Yeah.
Well, okay, well,
That's right, don't have it.
that's really?
Yes,
Okay, what about a swimming pool? Let's say you have a swimming pool already.
Get good coverage.
everybody has swimming pools.
Uh-huh.
I have a swimming pool. If you're gonna have a swimming pool, have lots of liability coverage.
Or what about a waiver?
Well, if this 7-year-old, if your neighbor's 7-year-old digs a hole under your fence and gets in your pool and drowned, is he gonna sign a waiver? No, there's no waiver.
So we've got Ellen on here who's asking, what is your recommendation in regards to liability coverage? I don't know if that's an easy answer.
No, it's easy.
Oh, good.
The theory behind liability coverage is that you should carry liability coverage that equals or exceeds your assets. When they come after you in a criminal court of law, they can't get what you don't have. All they can get is what you have. So take liability coverage that equals or exceeds your assets. And I never like to ask people how much assets they have. I just tell them, tell me how much of an umbrella you need to cover your assets, and that's what we'll write for you.
Okay.
And I would say in my,
Can I ask you a question?
sure.
About a trust, because a lot of people think that if they have a trust that it will cover their assets. What is your response on that?
I am not a lawyer, so I'm not gonna give you the best legal answer on that. I think it depends on how trusts are written and how they work.
Has a lot to do with that.
And I'll tell you, in Houston, Texas, there's a ton of lawyers, and they all write different kind of contracts. I've seen some hold up in court, and I've seen some that weren't worth the paper they're written on in court.
Yeah.
So it depends on the quality of your lawyer, which means you're gonna spend a lot more to get a good one than a bad trust.
Yeah.
I mean, the lawyers that are doing good work, in my opinion, these days are $600 an hour.
Wow.
Oh, that's right. That's what we have to pay to defend you when we go to court. We're paying $600 to $650 an hour plus court costs when we're defending one of our policyholders.
Wow.
You think that doesn't run into big bills? Yeah, it does. But do you understand the importance of liability coverage? It's equally, if not as important as the property coverage you put on that house. Okay? And I don't care if it makes sense or not makes sense, it's the law. Okay? I can't change that. You can't either. Unless you know somebody I don't know.
Question, is that only here in Texas or is that like?
That's the entire United States of America.
Just wanted to be sure.
Okay? So that's why I point out that one coverage, liability, is something everybody needs to think about a little bit more. Because most people, when they talk about homeowners or car insurance, that's the last thing they want to think about.
Yeah.
And in car insurance, people all want minimum liability because they want to pay less for it. Well, in auto insurance, the minimum liability is $30,000-$60,000 in Texas. If you kill somebody in an accident, how far is $30,000 going to go?
Mm-hmm.
And so if your property appraises for more each year, which it seems to keep going that direction, do you recommend we renew our policy with our insurance agent if it keeps going up in property value or market value?
Well, if your property keeps going up in market value, then your assets are going up, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
When you do an asset search, is your house considered in that asset search as an asset? Yes, it is. If your your value of your house goes, say your assets, I don't know, say you have $250,000 in assets, and your homeowner's value goes up $50,000, should you increase your liability coverage? Absolutely. If you don't, you're leaving yourself exposed in there. And I can promise you, when you go to court on these liability lawsuits, up in front of the courtroom, they're gonna have a big whiteboard, and they're gonna list everything you have in an asset search. They're gonna show pictures of your houses, your property, your cars, your checking accounts, your savings account, your
They lost
investments.
their house in Texas?
Huh?
Is this in Texas where this happened?
What?
The one with the pool?
The pool that
Yeah,
lost their
right here
house?
in Katy, Texas,
I
Cinco
thought Texas
Ranch.
was a homestead state, they can't take your house.
Oh, it depends on the
That can be
lawsuit.
true. We are a homestead state, but they can make your house where you can never sell it. They can put a lien against it where you can never sell the house until the
Oh,
lien's
yeah.
cleared.
Yeah.
But still, okay, if you are not home and whatever, some people go to your house and open your gate, get to your house and they went to the pool and have something happen. It's still, you still
That's
have
because we live in a
to-
society where people are
First question the
responsible for
attorney's
their
gonna
own
ask you, did you
actions.
lock your gate?
It's not locked, it's latched,
That's right.
right? Yeah.
Did you lock your gate? No. You're negligent, right there.
No, it's not locked. I think it's as far you are latched, it's fine.
That's right, you're negligent, you didn't lock it.
Mm,
You
You're the
have a
owner.
negligence position there.
What about you said, if some kids, dig
What's
a
amazing
hole
about that
from
though is
your
entering
fence?
someone's property, whether it's
That-
locked or not, is a crime. You committed
Yes.
trespassing.
Well,
So you're profiting from
A
a crime.
7-year-old's not considered an adult.
Doesn't matter.
Maybe I'm gonna
Well,
be
they-
sorry I brought all this up, but
It's just
that
like,
7-year-old may climb a fence or dig a hole under the
the
fence.
parents shouldn't be able to
You
profit
can't
from that
stop
either.
that.
But it all depends on who that attorney is. You got a good attorney that knows what they're doing and then,
Parents will
Well,
profit
Yes
from
and no, it's still
bad
negligence.
parenting.
yeah,
And if you have a negligence position, you're gonna lose.
that's rough.
Does it matter,
Reality.
does it matter if it's a child or an adult that does a trampoline thing?
Hopefully, there's no reasonable adult. would do that.
Oh, this is 2021.
How many Miller Lights are you gonna have before you get on that?
But what if
That's it.
what if you have like you have like a pool protections like the fence around the pool
For children.
for children, your gate is closed and that child leave their home and then come in your backyard when you are not home and you have camera like video recording showing how the child make a hole underneath the sink and underneath the fence and come in your yard and go over
I didn't even have to go
the,
through all that.
yes,
Just to get-
go over the protections for the pool and then go on the pool. Am I still liable for that?
Yes. Whose property is that swimming pool on? Who owns that property?
That doesn't make any
That,
sense.
they don't need to. Somebody need to call Washington D.C. I don't care. They need to change
This
it.
is
Somebody
the
need to
litigator
call
behind
Governor
it.
Abbott. Do something about
And I
it.
promise you, you're not gonna change the law.
That's
Crazy.
encourage criminal, right?
Yes.
I don't know if you can call a 7-year-old a criminal,
Not
he's just curious.
7-year-old,
He wants to
but
go
I mean,
swimming.
maybe teenager or older people, whatever, who knows those crazy people.
Well, there's,
they do.
states have different laws about what's an adult and what's not, so that can
Doesn't
vary
make
in the
any
state.
sense.
Okay, I have a question. So what if, let's say it's your neighbor, I know. Let's say it's your neighbor and it's spring break and he's on his trampoline and he wants to make it into your pool, right? But you think that he's a robber. What if, I know, well, cause like you're sleeping, let's say it's at night, right? And I know here in Texas, you can shoot anybody that's in your property if you think they're a trespasser. So what if,
Castle doctrine.
so what if they jump over because they're playing around in your pool and you shoot them? Are you still liable?
You better go get a lawyer. If
The
it's
sick,
an-
the sick
if
thing
it's an
is
adult,
that
you
you
probably
would
have a
probably
better
come
chance
out
than
on
if it's
top
a
in that
child.
situation. But if you did nothing, you lose.
Yeah.
That's it. You know, that's the sick thing.
We've had a little fun with liability here, but I hope you get the picture.
Yeah,
We're trying to make
it
a
really is.
serious point.
That
Okay?
is just crazy. Yeah, we're going down a rabbit hole.
I mean, in my office, I entertain 35 or 40 lawsuits a month against policyholders.
How maybe.
that I have to defend their right. Sometimes they're guilty, sometimes they're not. We get 92% of our people off. We have good lawyers. We probably have 2,000 lawyers.
Wow.
But if you're negligent, you're going down.
Wow.
So the easiest way to say that, nobody likes to think they're negligent, but if I could have a stupidity clause in insurance contracts, I could avoid paying half my claims.
Yeah,
That's true.
yeah.
People are their own worst enemies. Sorry. Okay, this next page in here is a typical homeowner's policy, just to give you an idea what a homeowner's policy looks like and the coverages on it. There's nothing particular I want you to take over for this, just that you can look at it and see what the homeowner's policy covers and how it's written. Now, this is a State Farm policy. The State Farm Lloyd's policy, according to the state of Texas, is the best coverage homeowner's policy we have in the state. This is the one that we sell all the time. One thing I'll tell you, when you have your clients come to buy homeowners insurance, it's always better if they bundle the car and home insurance together. They get what they call multi-line discounts, and it's a lot less expensive. I mean, it's 15 and 20% less on the cars and the homes. So it makes sense for people to insure the cars and the homes with one company.
I have that, the renters and, what's it called,
Yeah, I do
cars, and the renters is free.
So you done good. Is there any questions just about the basic homeowners policy there that you're looking at? Anything that jumps out at you?
Can I ask you two quick questions?
I guess.
In regards to a renter, would you recommend, because I know that they have seemed to kind of push that flood insurance over to their policy, and correct me if I'm wrong on that, would you recommend for people who are renters in regards to coverage?
Well, it depends on how much contents they have. If you get a kid that's right out of college moving into his first apartment, he probably doesn't have $20,000 worth of stuff. But it doesn't take long to get to $20,000 if you got a bedroom suit and a dresser and a smart TV and a computer.
I mean, it's pretty cheap to do like the full coverage, right?
Yes, if a person, I mean, I have people with oil companies that move around and temporarily in apartments, and they have big 3-bedrooms apartments that are fully furnished, and they may need a couple of $100,000 coverage. So it depends on what they have. But people,
What is something like that worth? Or what coverage is that?
It's just depending on the person.
Right, a month.
I don't know the answer to that. It depends on the construction of the apartments. It depends on where the apartment's located. Depends on how much coverage they take. There's a whole lot of variables that go into that. But people should, when they're renters and they're thinking about a renter's policy, they should think about what replacement cost is on that. Because if they're living, they've got a 10-year-old bedroom suit, they can't go out into the market and buy a 10-year-old bedroom suit. If they go down here to Mattress Mac, they're gonna get a new bedroom suit, and it's gonna cost them a lot more than what that 10-year-old one was worth, right? So they need to think about a replacement cost type of coverage there. Did that answer your question?
Yes, sir, thank you, I appreciate it.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna move on over to the next one now. I think this will be interesting for some of you. In Texas, till about 20 years ago, homeowners policy was a standardized contract. I mean, every company's policy read the same to the dotting of the I and the crossing of a T. For the last 20 years, standardization went away. Every company writes a different contract. So it's really a little bit hard to shop and compare contracts. But most policies fall into one of two types, either an all-risk policy or a named perils policy. Most policies in the market are named perils policies. Named perils means it only covers the 8 perils that are stated in the policy, period. That's all it covers. The all-risk policy covers pretty much what it says, anything that happens to the house. Now, if I tell you on this page, you wouldn't know if I didn't put named perils and all risk above those, which policy was which. You talk to your insurance agent and you'd say, oh, the numbers are about the same, the policy's gotta be about the same, right? The most important thing in a homeowner's policy is what? The settlement options. doesn't really matter as much what these numbers are. It's what the settlement options and the policies say. How are they gonna settle your loss? And let's go down here, since if you look at these, you're gonna think everything's pretty much the same, just looking at these numbers, right? Turn the page. And I'll show you, I chose a $250,000 house, and I'm gonna assume it's a fire and a total loss here. On your dwelling coverage, they're both insured for $250,000, right? Well, if your house burns, the first thing that has to happen is a coverage called debris removal. Somebody's gotta come in and tear out that burned out house and haul it off. Under an all-risk policy, there's extra coverage for that. Under a named perils policy, where does that coverage come from? They take it out of your dwelling coverage. So instead of having $250,000 to rebuild your house with, you have $237,000. Then the next coverage, option ID. On an all-risk policy, that says if we've misquoted the replacement cost on the house, we guarantee replacement costs. So on this house, we put an extra $50,000 in there to make sure the home got rebuilt. Named perils policy doesn't have that. You're still at $237,500.
Is this the only policy that you guys do, or do you do this one also?
I will not sell named perils
You
policy.
don't, okay, so most State Farm agents, now I'm wondering what mine is, I have State Farm,
You have
so,
an all-risk policy.
okay, alright.
I need to check mine now.
Well, remember, the agent has no responsibility to tell you that. And when most people come into me and they're closing on this home that you're selling them, what are they most interested in? Are they interested in the coverage or the premium amount to go to closing?
The premium.
They're interested in the premium. And that's where most people get in serious trouble on their homeowners policy. Because they take a low premium, but if you think about it, if one policy is $800 more than the other, what'd you give up? Something changed.
I may not get your house rebuilt.
Something changed.
And a lot of lenders, they will just, when they quote your person a price, they'll just put in whoever their preferred lender is. And the client actually, especially if they're new people, new home buyers, they'll just throw in whatever policy with whomever that person rubs, elbows with. So there's no protection. I mean, I don't know. It's like you're just throwing somebody out there.
I'm gonna take that a step further for you, if you will. The lender's only required in the loan amount. That's his only concern.
Right, he just wants to get his money back.
A lot of times the lenders will give you a quote for a policy, and it's what's called a fired extended coverage policy, which is the same kind of policy we would put on rent properties. They don't care if you have contents. They give you a premium just based on a fire and EC policy for dwelling only for the amount of the loan. For most people, that's absolutely not adequate. Most people want their contents coverage. Most people want liability coverage. So your lenders are not always working in your best interest on that deal.
And the price of construction just jumped up. The only thing that's happening is the bank is getting their money, but you've got no money to rebuild your home.
And a perfect example of that is, I don't know how many of you work in the new home market. There's been a company out there for years called ASI. Ever heard of them?
Yes.
Well, the builders work with them.
Uh-huh.
Why do the builders work with them?
I don't know, tell us. I wanna know.
We are trained to
Low-grade products.
Very low grade product. They have a horrible reputation with the State Board of Insurance for paying claims. There's a lot of financial issues with them, but the premium's right. And the builder wants to sell a house. And I bet that realtor wants to sell a house too. So they're trying to make those numbers as good as they can. But in insurance, that's the wrong place to do that. That's where you're gonna get killed when you have a claim.
Wow.
And I'll give you some examples of what I'm talking about a little later back here that may open your eyes on a few things. Anyway, so on the dwelling part of this settlement, there's a $70,800 advantage for the all-risk policy. On your contents coverage, that's pretty simple. There's a $62,000 advantage. On additional living expenses, the named perils policy is gonna give you a 10% coverage on $250,000 house. That's $25,000 for additional living expenses. If your house burns to the ground and you're gonna be living someplace else for 18 months, is $25,000 probably gonna get you through it? Probably not. The all-risk policy gives you 3 times that amount.
So you can use that money for like rent, if you have to rent the place for a while. or-
Whatever your additional living expenses are, yeah. If you have to go to the washateria because the apartment doesn't have a washer and dryer, it's gonna pick up that stuff for you.
Oh, okay.
But additional living expenses is interesting. I'm gonna stop here for a minute. If your house froze and you had busted water pipes and all the carpets pulled out of your house, is your house unlivable?
No.
That's right, it's not unlivable. You just don't like walking on concrete. But it has heat, it has running water, house is livable. They're not gonna put you up somewhere in that case.
But now if mold starts forming,
Mold is not covered under any Texas homeowners policy anymore.
really?
That's correct. 100 years ago, when they had all those big lawsuits, mold went, you can buy an endorsement to add to the policy to cover mold, but that endorsement is as expensive as the entire homeowner's policy is. So I almost never see anybody buy that. But if you have broken water pipes and you get water in your carpet and your walls and mold is created in those walls, when they tear out the sheetrock to replace it and put the spectricide down, you'll cure the mold situation. So that's not gonna be a big issue. But mold is not covered under any homeowner's policy in Texas.
Now, I have a question about that, because I just had a similar conversation with my mother yesterday, and we were talking about people hopping different plans, going for the, enter in your information and get the best deal on insurance, and so people are hopping companies and things like that, like jumping around. If someone had the same, policy for 30 years or something, and they originally had mold written in their policy, would that continue on if they didn't change their insurance? I mean, could they, because we were talking about that yesterday, and she's in Alabama, so, it could be a different thing, but I'm just wondering if someone had y'all's policy and had it
I don't-
for.
Does it get
I think the
grandfathered
answer
in?
to this is this. Homeowner policies renew how often?
Every year.
Every year.
So there should be no grandfather.
So there should be no grandfather. Whenever the state that company comes out with a new contract, they just insert it in the place of the old one, and it just continues to go on. My opinion is probably not grandfathered, but here again, I'm not a lawyer.
I'm just wondering, I don't know, I'm not sure, I think she's.
In fact,
far
one of the most recent lawsuits I was in Houston courts was, gentleman had a claim, and the first question that they asked him is if he had read his homeowner's policy, the lawyers. In fact, the judge asked him that. Have you read your policy? And he said no. He says, well, how many times has it renewed? And he says, well, I've renewed it 7 years that I've been with this company. He says, and you haven't read it a single time in 7 years? What do you think the judge is building there? He's building a negligence point on you.
You didn't take the thing. I need to go home and read more about this.
Are you supposed
Well,
to?
if you read it, it's Philadelphia lawyer talk, so most people aren't gonna understand it. So you better find an insurance agent that you know and trust.
See, that's what I told the judge, like, listen, I'm not.
Because remember, they don't have an obligation to tell you that. So you better trust somebody. All right, anyway, on this claim here, the all-risk policy would pay $183,000 more than the named perils policy for the same loss. I don't know what you think about $183,000, but that's significant. Or you could ask them which 2 rooms of the house to leave off. Down at the bottom, State Farm offers some things that most companies don't offer, like foundation coverage, long-term slow leaks, service lines, home protection. But the thing I like at the bottom is under claims, if your house needs a structural engineer out there, we pay for that, we cover that. The other companies won't do that. Any questions about the difference? I'm just trying to make you aware that there's different types of homeowners policies in the marketplace. And don't accept that it's just about the same as what you had before, because no 2 of them are alike there. Anyway, questions there?
So you mean if the property has, you want to do the inspection, right? So the insurance, you are gonna hire a structural engineer, so the insurance is gonna cover.
Well, the structural engineer usually comes up with reconstruction problems.
Oh.
You know, architects build houses, do interesting things sometimes.
The structural engineers tell them whether or not they're nuts.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, structural engineers are usually real solid construction people that tell you if it's a good construction technique or not, that kind of stuff. Does that answer what you're asking me?
Now, just
No.
wondering, you know, if you think let's say you are the homeowner, you think, oh, maybe I have foundation issues, or
No,
no, it's not covered.
we don't come out and do home inspections unless there's a claim.
Thank you guys for watching our first part series about insurance. Feel free to email me, text me if you have any questions, and subscribe to my channel. Until next time, goodbye.